Weekends smell like sunset discos, late nights, and your carefully curated shower playlist. And now, every day of the week can too. Introducing Friday Collective Candles. Every candle is designed to ignite weekend vibes. And the freest, most uninhibited, pants-optional version of you. With Friday Collective, you can be your Friday self every day.
What is going on, Laker fans? Thank you very much for tuning in. Another edition of Lakers Talk here on this Monday night. Hopefully everybody's having a good start to your week. Of course, Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. Lakers got a couple games this week. The Phoenix Suns tomorrow. I'm actually really looking forward to that game. I think we'll find out if this 3-game winning streak is real or if it's not. A couple games against the San Antonio Spurs on Friday and Saturday night. Mike Bresnahan, who covers the Lakers, does a fantastic job for Spectrum Sportsnet. He'll join us in about a half hour. If you guys want to be a part of the show, you can always hit me with a tweet. Hit me on Twitter, at Alan Sliwa, and we got some good topics today. I want to kind of start off tonight's show with this 3-game winning streak for the Los Angeles Lakers. Is it a big deal or is it not a big deal? I'm going to kind of play this out both ways, and you guys could make your own determination if you think this is a big deal or if you don't. First off, let me just say this. The Lakers started the season out 2-10. When you start the season out 2-10, anytime you grab a W, you take it. You don't care how it looks. You don't care who it's against. You don't care what players are in the lineup or what players are out of the lineup. It's obviously critical for the Lakers right now. Get as many wins as you possibly can when you start the season out 2-10. So let me kind of play this both ways for Laker fans that are out there. And, last night I'm doing the post-game show, getting a chance to interact with Laker fans. This morning I did the Travis and Sliwa show, getting a chance to interact with Laker fans. And I think most Laker fans are leaning one specific way on this question. And I'll tell you what I'm referring to there. Is it a big deal that Lakers won 3 games in a row? Let me tell you, I'm going to make a case first why it is a big deal, and then I'm going to make a case why it's not a big deal, and I'll tell you where I'm leaning in this conversation. So first off, why it's a big deal that the Lakers won 3 games in a row. It's a big deal because you started out the season 2-10. You're losing against good teams. You're losing against bad teams. You're losing in close games. You're losing in blowouts. It doesn't really matter. You're losing. And, whether you get lucky against the Pelicans team and you find a way to win the game or you're getting blown out against other teams, it really kind of hasn't even mattered for the Lakers. They're on the wrong end of all these games. And right out the gate, because that's the situation for the Lakers, to win 3 games in a row, nothing is guaranteed for a team that's 8 games below 500, 12 games into the season. So the fact that you found a way to beat the Brooklyn Nets, Kevin Durant obviously a part of that team, the Pistons, who I understand the Pistons are not a good team, and the San Antonio Spurs, I understand that's not a good team as well, but you're also, based on your record, you're not a good team. So right out the gate, to win 3 games in a row and you're in the position of the Lakers, if you were the Phoenix Suns or the Denver Nuggets or the Milwaukee Bucks, winning 3 in a row is not a big deal. But if you're the Lakers and you start off the season the way you did, getting 3 in a row does matter, and it gives a new head coach like Darvin Ham an opportunity to try to build some momentum. It gives players who have not been playing well, gives them some kind of momentum. So for that reason is why I would say it's a big deal. Now, let me play it the other way, why it's not a big deal. And this is where I'm leaning towards. I just want to remind Laker fans, these last 3 games, I think you got to look at the details because there are some details in there. Lakers beat the Brooklyn Nets. Nick Claxton left that game early. Kyrie Irving didn't play. Seth Curry didn't play. Ben Simmons didn't play. The Brooklyn Nets played the Lakers on a Sunday, a little bit over a week ago. Saturday, they had to play the Clippers, so it was a second of a back-to-back. All right? And the Brooklyn Nets, let's not pretend like they're the Milwaukee Bucks or one of these elite teams in the East. They got a lot of figuring out to do. Maybe they get to an elite team by the time the season's done, but they're not there today. So just remember how they beat the Brooklyn Nets and some of the factors that went into it. Okay, let's take the game on Friday night against the Pistons. The Pistons do not have that many good players. They don't. They had the worst record in the NBA. At least they had it on Friday night. I'm assuming that they still have the worst record in the NBA. But two of their key players, two of their starters, who if you take what Cade Cunningham and take what Isaiah Stewart, combine what they do, their averages on a night-in, night-out basis, that's about 35 points and 17 rebounds a game. They did not play against the Lakers on Friday night. The Pistons are already not a good team. That's the second win for the Los Angeles Lakers. And then the third win that we got last night against the San Antonio Spurs. Spurs are not a good team either. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games. After that loss yesterday, they now have lost 10 of their last 11 games. Jakob Poeltl didn't play. It's kind of an important player for them. And the theme here is that in each one of these games, somebody's missing. They're all playing back-to-backs. They all played the Clippers the night before, and these teams are not really all that good. Take the 3-game winning streak. Enjoy the 3-game winning streak because we know that has not happened often for the Lakers here over the last couple of years. Take it and enjoy it. But do I think it's a big deal that the Lakers beat the Nets, the Pistons, and the San Antonio Spurs based on all those circumstances that I mentioned? I'm happy they beat them, but I do not think it's a big deal. I think if you want to start churning some heads, you're going to have opportunities to do it. So Lakers are sitting at 5-10 right now. It's not like, the schedule is not going to allow for the Lakers to prove to teams out there or prove to fans out there that, hey, no. We are a much better team. The Lakers are playing better basketball, and they are going to eventually hover around the 500 mark and kind of build from there. I think that case can be made, but I don't think it can be made over these last 3 wins against those 3 opponents. Lakers got a good game coming up tomorrow. They really do. Like in a weird way, for somebody that's been covering the team now for a few years, it's been a second since I'm looking at the schedule and saying, hey, that's kind of a good one tomorrow, because I don't know against the Phoenix Suns tomorrow in Phoenix if the Lakers are going to ride this wave of this 3-game winning streak and walk into Phoenix tomorrow and have a good game against a good Phoenix team, or it would fall more along the lines as it has in the past as far as what the Lakers have been doing against, really just kind of look at last season and the way the Lakers started off this season. So I'm excited about that game tomorrow because I think it's going to help tell a little bit of a story. There's a couple different reasons why tomorrow is an exciting game if you're a Laker fan. Can you beat a good team on the road? That's number one. There's some real players over there with the Phoenix Suns. If the Phoenix Suns got to the NBA Finals, which I will say before the season started, I thought the Suns would take a step back this year. They have not done that so far. I think they're 10-6, something like that. But 10-6 got you that's the second best record in the West, and a lot of teams about 10-6. I want to say Utah is leading the Western Conference right now at 12-6. But I point that out because they're a good team. They got real players. Devin Booker's a real player. They got the right role players that are around. Now, I don't think Chris Paul and Cam Johnson will play tomorrow, but they got enough depth and enough players. I mean, hell, there was a game last week. They didn't have Chris Paul. They didn't have they didn't have Cam Johnson, and they still put up 130-plus against the Golden State Warriors. So they got the depth. They got a lot of good players. DeAndre Ayton will be there as well. So I'm fascinated by that game tomorrow because I think that game will tell us, are the Lakers onto something or are they not? Now, I think, both things can be true where they lose the game, but it's a close game, and AD has another one of those performances. I'm going to get to Anthony Davis in just a second. That can happen as well. That can happen where the Lakers, lose by 3 or 4 points, but it's a dogfight the entire way. You could still feel good about that. Not that the Lakers are in a position right now where they want moral victories, but I think you could say, all right, they won 3 in a row, and then they went on the road against the Phoenix Suns. What would be the outlier? What would be the great thing? And I don't have an answer for on this perspective yet. The best thing that can obviously happen is Lakers continue that 3-game momentum, walk into the Phoenix Suns, walk into Phoenix, and go grab another win, have 4 in a row with 2 more left to play this week against the San Antonio Spurs. That would be amazing. And then you start getting some heads that start churning and saying, maybe the Lakers are onto something. Maybe what they're doing is setting up for a much different rest of the season than the way they started out the year at 2-10. Quick shout out here, Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Greatly appreciate their partnership here on Lakers Talk. I say it all the time, don't procrastinate. Whether you need an oil change, tire rotation, transmission care, and more, pull up, drive in about 15 minutes. Visit SoCalOilChange.com for location and game winning coupons off your next Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Something else has happened here over these last 3 games for the Lakers. It's a very, very obvious one. Anthony Davis has been amazing. Not good. Not average. Not, oh, wow, that was a really nice second quarter. Or oh, wow, he was really good on the defensive side. Yeah, just didn't get into a rhythm on the offensive end. No. Anthony Davis has put up some monster numbers for the Lakers in these last few games, 3 games in a row. When we come back, I want to talk about AD. Is this the Anthony Davis that we're going to start getting used to? Or is that game tomorrow another good example of AD against a good team with a good big man? What Anthony Davis was doing, was he just taking advantage of bad teams and teams that were missing some of their big men? Or is Anthony Davis, when he walks on the floor, the best player on the floor 95% of the time this year? We'll do that coming up next. Stay right here. This is Lakers Talk on 710 ESPN.
Beverly Center, your holiday shopping destination. Find the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Discover new stores like Swarovski, Golden Goose, and Impossible Kicks. Enjoy favorites like Zara, The Webster, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Uniqlo, and more. Celebrate wrapping up your holiday list at one of our street-level restaurants, including H&H Brazilian Steakhouse, Yardbird, and AB Steak. Beverly Center, located at the intersection of Beverly Hills and West Hollywood.
All right, welcome back to Lakers Talk. Mike Bresnahan of Spectrum Sportsnet is going to join us here in about 15 minutes or so please make sure to stay around for that. I was setting up Anthony Davis. So Michael Funches here sent me some stats here on Anthony Davis. So I want to just kind of walk you through this because the Lakers have won 3 games in a row, and I do not think that it is a coincidence that Anthony Davis in his last 3 games, 38-16, 37-18, 30-18, and has not shot worse than 60% from the field. He's leading the Lakers in points, rebounds, steals, and block shots over those 3 games. Again, I'm going to say this again. It is not a coincidence that Anthony Davis has had these type of games so far this year, and the Lakers have won 3 games in a row. I always have a frustration with Anthony Davis, and I'm going to tell you guys how I felt before the season started, and I've been pretty consistent on this one. I have tapered my expectations of Anthony Davis. I'm not expecting Anthony Davis to be the player that he was in that championship bubble. I'm not expecting that Anthony Davis is going to compete for the most valuable player this year. I'm not expecting Anthony Davis to be a top 5 player in the league. My expectations have been lowered because the last 2 years I was barking on this microphone, specifically in pre and post and Lakers talk and everything else, saying that he was going to be all of that. And for 2 straight years, I disappointed myself, and it didn't happen. So I've said this before, faith is you believe something before you see it. The way I look at Anthony Davis now I have to see it to believe it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope what Anthony Davis has done these last 3 games is a better reflection of what we're going to see from Anthony Davis for the rest of this year. Now, I'm going to kind of stop here for a quick second. By the way, another stat here, StatMuse. Anthony Davis has more 30 and 15 games this season than Embiid, Giannis, and LeBron combined. So, obviously, Anthony Davis is doing some special stuff right now. AD in 28 minutes last night, 30-18. Funches was telling me that the last player to have 30-18 in under 30 minutes was Wilt. So it just kind of shows what a run these last 3 games have been for Anthony Davis. I was telling Michael Thompson this in the pregame show. I was, getting ready, got our topics all set up, and I'm like, hey, Michael, Let's talk about Anthony Davis these last couple of games. And Michael stops me. He's like, Al, I don't want to hear you make a big deal about Anthony Davis having 2 good games in a row. Because Michael Thompson, trust me, there's nobody else that knows basketball and knows the NBA better than MT, is saying, I don't want to make a big deal about a player that should be doing this on a night in, night out basis. However, what I was trying to explain to Michael is you're not wrong, but he doesn't do it on a night in, night out basis. So I have to bring it up. And it is a big deal, whether you like it or you don't. Michael wants to see this that, hey, he does it. Give me a sample size of 10 games where he's this dominant, and then we could start kind of getting to the point where we become used to it. He's not wrong on that. But AD obviously has not done that, at least in these last couple of years. AD's been special these last few games. Special. Those are monster stats that I mentioned right there. Those are huge stats. I mean, you go around the NBA, and there aren't too many players that put up those type of numbers, period. And, you might get, what was it? I think what to say last week, Embiid had just a stupid stat. He had like 59 and 11 and 8 and 7. It was something like that. Those are special, special nights, and only the best players in the world have nights like that. So I point that out because something's going to happen tomorrow. As much as I sit here and I talk about the Lakers with a 3-game winning streak, and let's see what it means when they go up against a good team. Tomorrow's a perfect example to also see with Anthony Davis. Did you just have dominating games against 3 bad teams that didn't have any big men, or can you do it against a good Phoenix Suns team? Number one. And can you also do it against a Phoenix Suns team that has a good big man in DeAndre Ayton? Now, he's not Embiid, he's not Giannis, he's not Jokic, but DeAndre Ayton is a good big man in the NBA, and if he has another one of those nights, if he has another one of these 30 and 15 and a few block shots and a few steals, and he's the best player on the floor with Devin Booker out there, he's the best player on the floor with Ayton and the depth that the Phoenix Suns have, and Monty Williams being a really good coach in the NBA, I'm going to go back to this. That's when you start churning heads around the league. Because right now, people can look at the Lakers and say, okay, you won 3 in a row. Who'd you beat? Cool. Who was playing? Hey, AD, those are monster numbers. Awesome. Who'd you go up against in those games? And we can kind of have that conversation and make a case that at least for these 3 straight wins, there were some circumstances that played to the Lakers' advantage. Can Anthony Davis go get the Lakers a W on the road against the Phoenix Suns? Make it 4 in a row. I'm not telling you that he's not going to need help. Of course he's going to need help. A little bit later in the show, I'll get into some of the role players for the Lakers and what some of those guys have been doing. But of course he's going to need help. Maybe LeBron goes, maybe he doesn't go. There's a lot of circumstances that fall into getting a tough W on the road. But I pause. I hesitate. I wait a second when it comes to LeBron or when it comes to AD and it comes to the Lakers right now because I want to see it against a good team. I don't say this, I don't want to say this I don't want to be dramatic on this one, but I'm actually really excited about tomorrow's game. I am. And, right now for Lakers basketball, they have to give you a reason to be excited. And when you win a few games in a row and you got a good matchup coming against a good team in the Western Conference and it's going to be in Phoenix on the road, that gives you something to look forward to. Another thing that's interesting is the Lakers have been able to do this. They've won these 3 games without LeBron James. LBJ has not been in the lineup. By the way, I don't know if that helped, if that's kind of helped Anthony Davis and it's helped some of these other players. When you just have Anthony Davis, you are not depending on anybody else. And if you're Anthony Davis, you're not kind of sitting back and saying to yourself, oh, well, I got Bron, so Bron's going to be able to help me. No. This whole thing has been in Anthony Davis's hands. AD, hey, you got to go out there. We're going to keep looking for you. We're going to keep feeding you the ball. Don't worry. When you're down low, you're going to get a lot of the touches. Each time down the floor, we're going to look at Anthony Davis first before they do anything. I don't know how much that's helped Anthony Davis over this stretch. I don't know if that's kind of maybe that's a little bit more of a mindset for AD to kind of say, all right, well, everything's on my shoulders. Everything's on my back. But that has kind of been the case so far for Anthony Davis over these last 3 games, and it's obviously worked to the Lakers' benefit. So let's see if they could ride this thing out. And that's the hope. You go up against the Phoenix Suns tomorrow, and I'm going to go back to this, kind of reiterate it. You don't turn heads in the NBA by beating the Pistons and the San Antonio Spurs or a Brooklyn team that had 3 of their top 5 players that were out, or 3 of their top 4 players, whatever you want to put it. The way you turn heads around the NBA is you go beat good teams and you go beat them on the road. That your star player carries you on the road when everybody's against you and the Phoenix Suns are supposed to go out there and compete for the Western Conference. That's how you turn heads. So that's my hope for tomorrow, Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. That's obviously my hope as the Lakers kind of continue to try to build on that 3-game winning streak. That's my hope that Anthony Davis, with these stupid stats, these last few games, these last 3 games, my hope is that AD can obviously build off of that as well. That's the hope. Now, tomorrow will come. We'll do the pregame show at 5:30. Tip-off will be at 7 o'clock. And then we'll find out if the Lakers are really building on something and Anthony Davis can do it again. We'll wait for that tomorrow. Okay, Mike Bresnahan, like I mentioned, of Spectrum Sportsnet. He's coming up next. Stay right here. This is Lakers Talk on 710 ESPN.
This episode is brought to you by AT&T. Everyone gets AT&T's best deal on the new iPhone 14 Pro. So, people currently listening to comedy podcasts who can't wait for their podcast to end so they can tell that guy in front of them on the bus about it, even if he is the driver. And people listening to political podcasts, saving juicy political quotes to throw down at Thanksgiving dinner with their relatives. And people listening to true crime podcasts who desperately want to talk about true crime podcasts at work, but they're not sure if anyone else is into that, and they don't want to seem weird to their office crush, and they already got odd looks that time they looked up that crazy case on their work computer. The point is, everyone, new and existing customers, ask how to get up to $800 off the new iPhone 14 Pro with the incredible camera with eligible trade-in. Visit att.com or our stores for details. Terms and restrictions may apply.
All right, welcome back to Lakers Talk. I want to welcome in Laker analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet, a good friend of mine as well, Mike Bresnahan, taking some time. Mike, thanks for doing this, bud. How are you?
I'm doing well. Still recovering a little bit from that draw in football.
I know.
We're supposed to be calling it this time of year. We had Wales, but what can you do? What can you do?
Well, World Cup in November. I didn't know you and I would break down a Laker game, and then we'd also break down some World Cup as well. That's, I guess, what happens when it's in the Middle East. You have to put it in November. Brez, I want to start off. I spent a lot of time so far on the show talking about the Lakers' 3-game winning streak, talking about Anthony Davis. Let me ask you, because I think you have a very unique opinion. You watch so much Lakers basketball, and we've obviously seen the Lakers' struggles these last couple of years, and then the start of this season as well. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Give me just how you look at it. They've won 3 games in a row. It was against the Brooklyn Nets, it was against the Pistons, and it was against the San Antonio Spurs. If you start looking at the details, obviously all 3 of those teams missing some players or playing on back-to-backs. But just your version of how you look at a 3-game winning streak for the Lakers right now, and now they're sitting at 5-10.
I would give you 2 words: absolutely necessary. And you don't want to be saying that, it's past the midpoint of November. But when you're sitting at 2-10, you got to take the wins any way you can. And AD absolutely was the catalyst. Just knowing full well the last 3 opponents had undersized front courts. No Pirtle last night. No Isaiah Stewart for Detroit. And Brooklyn, Nick Claxton's young. He can block shots, but, AD's not afraid of him. And AD did what he has done so many times in the past, especially in the championship year. He just dominated down low. And I love how he is no longer shooting mid-range. He's barely shooting threes. He's basically abandoned everything except for stuff in the paint. And I think that's his game. And all you have to do, Alan, is listen to what his teammates are saying. I talked to Westbrook the last 2 games afterwards, and especially last night. He said, hey, it's big for us when he's aggressive. It makes us a different team when he's like that in the paint. And Austin Reeves, similar sentiments. Man, he's been a monster. And Austin Reeves said, we know what to do. Just give him the ball and get out of the way. So his teammates are also really appreciative of it. They're very supportive of it. It's been a great week. It was a great week for Anthony Davis.
Brez, what do you – how many – I'm trying to think here. What do you have to see from Anthony Davis for you to say, hey, no, this is who he is right now? Right now he's going to put up these monster numbers. He's doing it against good teams, bad teams, good big men, bad. Like I'm trying to think here. What is it? I don't want to make too much of what's going to happen tomorrow, but I do think tomorrow for me – will tell a lot about, is this 3-game winning streak something, and is Anthony Davis dominating the way he has in these last 3 games? To what level is that something? Because it's the Suns, because it's DeAndre Ayton, because it's Devin Booker, because it's a game on the road, because the Suns are 10-6 and they've kind of been there, done that, and really have had the Lakers' number these last couple of years as well. What does it take for the AD piece of it for you to say, guys, I think we're going to get him. We're going to get that type of night more times than not, rather than 23-9, and you really didn't know if he impacted the game or not.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so I kind of surprised Austin Reeves with this question last night afterwards. Certainly not my first question. He's been playing great, by the way, averaging almost 18 points over his last 4 games, hitting a ton of threes. And I said to him, are you aware of the road stats coming up? And he kind of looked at me blankly. And I said, 9 of your next 11 and 16 of your next 22 are away from home. And he was like stunned. He kind of, he kind of tilted his head back for a brief second. And then he recovered and said, well, team bonding, a lot of good dinners together. We're going to get to really know each other. But I think we'll know a lot more about this team over the next 6 to 8 weeks, because 22 games total, that's about 6 weeks at least, maybe 7 weeks. And all those road games, 16 of your next 22 away from Crypto.com Arena, Anthony Davis really has to be the guy. And even if you look just at the upcoming schedule, you mentioned Phoenix. You got DeAndre Ayton in a couple days. Not long after that, you're going to have Nurkic in Portland. You're going to have Miles Turner.
That's right.
The much-discussed Miles Turner for Indiana. Early in December, you've got Giannis. You've got Embiid. You've got the Twin Towers in Cleveland. So can he stay at this pace over the next just 2 or 3 weeks against some really good big men? Because, like I said, I already named the guys or the teams he's been going against recently, not exactly all defensive types for big men. So a lot of road games coming up, a lot of tough matchups for him. How is he looking? And let's call it mid-December, and then we can really start to say, okay, whatever was kind of plaguing him in the first couple weeks of the season has definitely gone away.
That's a great, actually, observation, because the AD piece of it, you're going to get these tests, like you mentioned, over the next couple of weeks. And by the way, that's exciting. I want to say, you win 3 games in a row, and I'm not. I like the 3 win. Like you said, you got to get. You start the season out 2-10. However, you can get a win. You don't care how you win. You don't care who's playing for the other team. Just get wins. But tomorrow does make me feel a little bit like, all right, I think we'll have a better idea of who they are, and if they lost by 20 tomorrow or 15, and AD doesn't have that impactful of a night, then I think it's easy to just kind of go back to how we felt a week ago. But if that's not the storyline and that's not the case, then it obviously gives you something to look forward to. You mentioned Austin Reeves a couple different times there, so him and Lonnie Walker have been just so great for the Lakers. Just a couple of pieces that I don't know what we were depending on that those 2 players were. I know Austin Reeves coming back after last year, but Lonnie Walker, okay, what is he going to be for the Lakers? Is it going to be just a typical role player, 8-9 points a game? He's averaging close to 17 points a game. I think he's been one of their more consistent players all season long. What have you made of those 2 players specifically and how they've contributed?
Austin Reeves just picking up right where he left off last year, with that triple-double against Denver late in the season. And, I think he kind of went through what Kyle Kuzma went through a few years ago in that, Kyle was a starter, things were looking good, and then all of a sudden he had to accept the bench role. And Reeves had a really nice finish the last season, and then you got a new coaching staff, and you got Lonnie Walker, and you've got Kendrick Nunn coming back, who obviously has not been playing well, and Troy Brown Jr., a lot of 2s and 3s, and Reeves kind of got pushed to the back for the first 2-3 weeks of the season. And now he's kind of like, all right, guys, obviously Kendrick Nunn slumping, so that you put him down towards the end of the bench. Troy Brown Jr., good player, not quite the same position as Reeves, and a little more sporadic on offense. We have Reeves, who's just been really consistent lately, and I think he's found a really good groove as a part-time starter, who's pretty good as like the seventh man off the bench right after Russ comes in. As for Lonnie Walker, I think we're kind of the same, you and me, Alan. We watch all 82 Lakers games, right? So we have a limited number of times where we can see other teams around the league. So I feel like Lonnie Walker IV is this year's Malik Monk. I knew Malik Monk had some ability before the Lakers signed him last year, but it's not like I'm watching a ton of games, a ton of Charlotte games, right? Same thing for Lonnie Walker. I saw him 3 or 4 times each year over the last few years when he would play for the Spurs, but we're not watching 35 Spurs games every year. Only Mike Trudell does that. He's crazy enough to always have his iPad open,
that's right,
watching other teams. But that's why he always wins our fantasy league too. But Lonnie Walker IV has been such a pleasant surprise, much more explosive than I thought, a better defender than I thought, better defender than Malik Monk, that's for sure. And he only signed a 1-year deal. That's the only minus, but he bet on himself. And he's going to make some pretty good money, just like Malik did this past offseason.
Mike Bresnahan, who's the Laker analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet. You can catch him for every game. He does a fantastic job. A lot of the times he's on there with Big Game James Worthy, obviously Robert Ory and Chris McGee and Allie Clifton joining us now here on Lakers Talk. Brez, I'm curious, you go look at the NBA standings right now, and it's interesting, the Western Conference. I mean, heck, the Utah Jazz are the number 1 seed in the West.
Yeah.
But then there's also, the Warriors are a game below 500. The Pelicans are just 2 games over. I'm just kind of naming off. Minnesota's a 500 team. How do you think the Lakers, you talked about this stretch coming up, the 16 of 22 on the road, which is probably going to determine their season, right? By the time December is over, I think we're going to know whether there's a team out there that is going to compete in the playoffs and are going to be in the mix, or that's not going to be the case for the Lakers. From what you've seen so far, how much do you feel like you know what this team is, and how much do you feel like there's just still so many unanswered questions?
I covered Phil Jackson for many, many years when I was writing for the LA Times. His second tour with the Lakers, I missed the Kobe Shaq years. And Phil always had kind of like a corollary whenever anybody would ask him about how good the team is in October or early November. He'd say, I know what we'll have by Thanksgiving. You'll right around 20 games at that point, you have a pretty good idea of who you are. I'm not sure even Phil could figure out this team right now simply because there's been so much starting and stopping. LeBron, he just missed his 4th game yesterday. Is he back tomorrow in Phoenix? We don't know. Adductor strains, which is basically like a groin strain, very hard to gauge. There's no sure timetable. It's not like a broken finger or anything like that has a hard and fast timetable. So, and can AD, which we've already devoted a lot of this interview to, can he keep going at what we've seen over the last week? There's just so much up in the air about this team. You might have to go to Christmas. You might have to roll the holiday back an entire month from Thanksgiving just to figure out exactly what this team is. And like you said, this next 22 games really will determine who they are and how they're going to be, because we're going to be after the first of the year by the time that stretch ends.
Brez, I think you're right, and I'm with you. I kind of was saying to myself, hey, the first 20 games, we're going to know what the Lakers are. There is enough, I think, question marks still out there, and Thomas Bryant, obviously Dennis Schroeder just coming back, and I'm not telling you that that's the biggest additions, but they've already proven that they can help and be nice role players, so maybe we are going to need some more time. Final one I got for you, Brez, and always appreciate you taking the time. Lakers-Suns tomorrow, if they're going to beat Phoenix, how are they going to do it? If they're going to go upset the Suns on the road and make it 4 in a row?
We harped a lot on the threes earlier in the season. That hasn't really been talked about much lately because AD has been so dominant. But I really think they've got to hit their shots tomorrow night. It's going to be a fun crowd. I always liked going to games in Phoenix. It's a knowledgeable crowd. It's a thirsty crowd. They still have yet to win that first ever NBA Finals. I think the outside shot is really going to be important tomorrow night. And will LeBron be back? I think that will really determine who wins that game. There's still no spread on it. I checked before we started talking. So Vegas is waiting because they're not sure which way this thing is going to go either. But I think the outside shot will, again, be part of our conversation tomorrow night in the post-game show, for better or for worse. They're still pretty deep in the league. Last time I checked, they were 30th. I haven't checked in a couple days in three-point shooting. They got to be pretty accurate tomorrow night in Phoenix, that's for sure.
Brez, always appreciate it, buddy. Thank you for taking the time.
Alan, anytime, my friend. See you soon.
All right, that's Mike Bresnahan, covers the Laker analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet. Let's do this. I got a couple final thoughts coming up next. The Laker role players, how good they're playing, specifically Lonnie Walker and Austin Reeves, and that schedule coming up for the Lakers, 16 of the next 22 on the road. We'll do all that coming up next. Lakers Talk on 710 ESPN.
Legendary comedian, podcaster, and Uber One member Sarah Silverman here. You know, when people call me for advice, I always tell them, join Uber One. It gives you 5% off rides, up to 10% off food, and a $0 delivery fee. I don't really tell them that, but what am I going to do? It's a commercial. I actually say, wear sunscreen, drink water, eat a plum, and floss. So take my advice. Join Uber One. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not your mommy.
Order minimums apply. Percentage off discounts only available for participating stores and non-scheduled rides. See uber.com/Uber1 for details.
All right, shout out to Mike Bresnahan taking the time to join us here. Always appreciate his time. By the way, if you miss any part of the show, you want to catch it, ESPN LA app, we got a Lakers Talk channel there. So all the Lakers content goes up there. So feel free to listen to the full hour of the show. So I got a couple final thoughts here. Lakers taking on the Phoenix Suns tomorrow. Laker role players. You know, I don't think we're talking enough. And I get all the attention right now is going to Anthony Davis. And it should. Don't get me wrong. Anthony Davis having the type of numbers that he had these last three games, it's incredible. 38 and 60, 37, 8 to 30 and 8. I mean, just stupid numbers, shooting over 60% each one of these games. But something that I want to point out with the Lakers and some of their role players, if LeBron James isn't playing in these games and Anthony Davis is who you're depending on a night-in, night-out basis, can't have one guy do it all, right? I mean, there are times I've seen LeBron and Anthony Davis dominate games. Lakers still lose because nobody else contributes. They got some real help right now. Now, I don't know how consistent it's going to be, but I'll tell you two of the players, and Brez and I were just talking about it, who have been consistent. Austin Reeves, he's been fantastic. He had 21 points yesterday, 7 of 11 from the field. Lakers have, and I think he's just under 10 points a game is what his average is. Lakers had 7 guys scoring double figures yesterday. I actually asked that question to Coach Darvin Ham before yesterday's game. On Friday night against the Pistons, Lakers had 6 guys scoring double figures, and the question is just, look, when you have AD dominate the way he does, but then there's this balance spread amongst the rest of the team, just how much does that help? That defenses can't really focus on one player. I always compliment other teams with their depth and how they have, I'm going to give as an example, the Utah Jazz, there's 7 guys that score in double figures. The Clippers have a roster of 12 dudes that can contribute. Go down the list. Golden State Warriors, whoever it is, the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers lack depth. Now, these last couple of games, you're starting to see, especially now Thomas Bryant is back. Dennis Schroeder is back. Those players right out the gate look like they're contributing. Kendrick Nunn has had 2 games in a row where he scored in double figures. I think the depth right now for the Lakers, at least in these last couple of games, has been huge. You guys know Lonnie Walker IV is averaging about 16 points a game. Lonnie Walker IV. If I'd have told you before the season started that Lonnie Walker IV was going to have these types of contributions, I don't think anybody would have believed that. So shout out to the Lakers, their bench. They had 45 points. They had 45 bench points a couple nights ago against the Pistons. Shout out to all these guys that are contributing. And if you're going to go on any kind of winning streak, and let's just use tomorrow's game as an example, you're going to go beat the Phoenix Suns, you're not going to do it even if AD puts up 35 and 18. If nobody else is, if you got one other guy in double figures or 2 other guys in double figures, 2 guys with 10 or 12 points, you're going to lose a game. So I think that portion for me is one of the things that's not being talked about enough is how great the Lakers have been depth-wise. Shout out to Valvoline Instant Oil Change. You know, it takes only about 15 minutes to get your car serviced. Visit SoCalOilChange.com for location and game-winning coupons off your next Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Thank you for their partnership on the show. Okay, one other thing I want to do here on the show as we come to a close here. So Mike Bresnahan mentioned this. I'm going to go back to it here real quick. I thought by the time November ended, we're going to know what this Laker team is. I'd like to extend that. And I'm with him on it. I can't, to be honest with you, I can't tell you 100% what this team is right now. AD threw me by surprise to have these types of numbers these last 3 games. Braun has obviously missed a few games in a row now, so that kind of has churned things. Thomas Bryant and Dennis Schroeder have come back, and they look like they could be nice role players for the Lakers. You heard Bresnahan say it. 16 of the next 22 games for the Lakers are on the road. 9 of the next 11 games for the Lakers are on the road. And there are some real good competition that Lakers are going to get. So let me name off a couple of the games that the Lakers are going to have. At Phoenix tomorrow, right? Indiana is actually one of the better teams right now in the NBA in the Eastern Conference. You got them coming up in a week. You got the Blazers, who have one of the best records in the Western Conference. Okay, how about December? You're going to start out Milwaukee, Washington, Cleveland, Toronto, Philadelphia, all on the road. Joel Embiid you're going to face. Giannis Antetokounmpo you're going to face. Donovan Mitchell you're going to face. Who else? And just kind of go off of some of this list. Pascal Siakam. Kind of go down the list of some of these players that are represented on those teams. You're definitely going to get some good competition. So by the time you get to January 1st, or call it January 2nd, because Lakers got a road game there, you're going to have played 16 of your 22 games on the road. And I think by that point, we will have a very, very good idea of if the Los Angeles Lakers can hang in the Western Conference with some of these other teams, or if they're just not a team that's going to compete, and it's going to be 2 years in a row that they're not a part of that playoff conversation. And I really, really hope that that's not going to be the case. They're 5-10 right now. If you really I know we don't want to just stare at the standings right now. Timberwolves are 8-8. They're in the 10th spot. What are you, 2.5 games behind that 10th spot? The Warriors aren't even in that 10th spot at this point. So still a lot of basketball left to be played. But for the Lakers, they just got to worry about themselves. Go on some kind of streak, and tomorrow, and I think these next couple of weeks is going to give everybody a good indication of what kind of basketball the Lakers are playing, and if it is certainly a team that's heading in the right direction, or if they just got fortunate by playing 3 bad teams. Okay, I'm back on tomorrow morning with Travis Rogers, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. I got the pre and post starting at 5:30 tomorrow. We'll start the pregame show, myself and Michael Thompson. 7 o'clock will be tip-off against the Phoenix Suns. Quick shout-out here. Thank you to Michael Funches. Thank you to Laura Romo. Thank you to Mara Ruiz. Everybody that listened to the show as well. Greatly appreciate it. I'm Alan Sliwa. This has been Lakers Talk on 710 ESPN.